It was February 9, 1864. Deep inside Libby Prison, a Confederate stronghold in Richmond, Virginia, over 100 Union officers were preparing for the impossible. They were malnourished, weak, and living in conditions that could break even the strongest men. But for the past 17 nights, they had been working on something that would change everything. A tunnel hidden beneath the prison floors. This wasn't just an escape. It was a gamble with life and death. With nothing but crude tools and sheer determination, they had carved their way toward freedom, risking discovery and execution at every turn. And now, with the clock ticking and the temperature dropping below freezing, it was time to act. This is the story of the greatest mass prison escape in the American history. Before we get to the big escape, let us understand how they got there in the first place. The American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865, was one of the most devastating conflicts in United States history, claiming over 600,000 lives. However, the toll of the war extended beyond the battlefield. Twice as many soldiers died from disease as from combat. Poor sanitation and inadequate medical care played significant roles in the spread of illnesses among troops. As the war dragged on, the number of prisoners of war increased dramatically, leading to overcrowded and unsanitary conditions in military prisons. By the end of the conflict, it is estimated that around 400,000 Union and Confederate soldiers were held as prisoners of war across various facilities. These numbers reflect not only the intensity of the fighting, but also the logistical challenges faced by both sides in managing captured soldiers. One of such Confederate prison facilities was known as the Libby Prison. Located in the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, Libby Prison has had a storied past that began long before it became a notorious prison for Union soldiers. Originally constructed between 1845 and 1852 as a tobacco warehouse, the complex was designed by architect Alexander Paris and operated by John Enders. Following the outbreak of Civil War, the Confederate government repurposed the facility in March 1862 to accommodate the growing numbers of captured Union officers. The transition from a commercial enterprise to a military prison marked a significant shift in its use and reputation. The prison complex consisted of 3 interconnected buildings that formed a large structure occupying an entire city block. This strategic location allowed for easier control and surveillance of inmates. The upper floors housed the prisoners, while the first floor contained officers of the Confederate Guards. The prison was designed to hold Union officers only, with enlisted men often routed to other facilities, such as Belle Isle on the James River. Despite its imposing structure, Libby Prison quickly became infamous for its overcrowded conditions and harsh treatment of inmates. Initially designed to hold a few hundred officers, by late 1863, the population had surged to over 1,000 inmates crammed into inadequate spaces. Prisoners were assigned to sparsely furnished rooms with little more than bare wooden floors and minimal furnishings. They often slept in spoon formation to conserve body heat, turning over on command to relive their aching bodies. Food shortages were rampant, with rations consisting of meager portions of cornbread, rancid bacon, and bug-ridden soup. The lack of proper nutrition led to health issues among inmates. Diseases spread rapidly in such cramped quarters, with illnesses like diarrhea, dysentery, and typhoid pneumonia becoming common afflictions. It is estimated that 5 prisoners passed away every single day at Libby Prison. To put that into context, over 1,000 of them lost their lives during the Civil War. Reports from former inmates describe the air inside as fetid and suffocating, contributing to an environment where despair flourished. Personal accounts from those who endured imprisonment at Libby provide harrowing insights into their experiences. One former inmate described the conditions as an aeon of agony, reflecting on the psychological toll that confinement took over them. Another echoed similar sentiments, likening their suffering to being trapped in an inferno where hope seemed it but lost. The stage was set for one of the most remarkable prison escapes in history. But every story needs a hero, someone with courage and resilience, who can pave the way for himself and others through the toughest of situations. Libby found its hero in Colonel Thomas Rose, a man of the 77th Pennsylvania Infantry, emerged as a central figure in the story of the Libby prison escape. His military career began when he enlisted in the Union Army at the onset of the Civil War, prior to which he was a school teacher. He would quickly rise through the ranks due to his leadership skills and bravery. Rose distinguished himself during several key battles, including Antietam and Gettysburg, but it was at the Battle of Chickamauga in September 1863 that his fortunes took a drastic turn. In a fierce engagement, Rose's regiment faced overwhelming Confederate forces, resulting in significant losses. During this chaotic battle, he was captured and taken to Libby Prison, where he would endure some of the war's harshest conditions. Upon arriving at Libby, Rose was struck by the appalling state of the prison. The overcrowded cells, inadequate food supplies, and rampant disease painted a grim picture of life behind bars. Witnessing firsthand the suffering of his fellow officers ignited a fierce determination within him to escape. He could not accept being confined in such deplorable conditions and felt a deep sense of responsibility to return to his regiment and continue fighting for the Union cause, for he knew escape was the only way he could have his freedom back. Rose's resolve to escape led him to explore various avenues for freedom. Initially, he attempted to organize a revolt among the prisoners, hoping that a coordinated effort could overpower the guards and facilitate an escape. However, this plan quickly fell apart due to a lack of support and fear among the inmates. The psychological toll of captivity had left many feeling defeated, making it difficult for Rose to rally them into action. Undeterred, Rose turned his attention to more practical methods of escape. He began collaborating with Major Adge Hamilton, another officer who shared his desire for freedom. Hamilton had been captured at Chickamauga, as well as possessed both military experience and a keen mind for strategy. Together, they devised plans that included slipping past guards or finding alternative routes out of prison. Their first attempts were fraught with danger and ultimately unsuccessful. On one occasion, Rose tried to sneak out through a basement window but was spotted by a guard just as he was about to make his move. Each failed attempt only intensified their resolve. They understood that time was running out as rumors circulated about potential prisoner transfers to other facilities further south. Recognizing that they needed a more sustainable plan, Rose and Hamilton focused on tunneling as their primary means of escape. The first two attempts involved digging in areas that were either too exposed or too difficult to conceal. They quickly realized that they needed a more strategic location to avoid detection by the guards. They not only had to find a discreet location that was away from the guards' attention, but also a big enough space where all the dirt and debris from the digging could be hidden. In search of such a space, their eyes turned to the basement area known as Rat Hell, a filthy and neglected part of the prison that had been largely ignored by both prisoners and guards. This uninviting space, filled with straw and infested with rats, offered a unique opportunity for concealment, an ideal location for digging a tunnel without attracting attention. Rat Hell was a dark, dank section of the basement where the remnants of an abandoned kitchen lay. The floor was covered in straw, which served as both a blessing and a curse. While it provided insulation against the cold and a means to hide the dirt excavated from their tunneling efforts, it also contributed to the foul atmosphere, filled with the stench of decay and the constant scurrying of rats. Guards rarely ventured into this area due to its uninviting nature, making it the perfect cover for their escape plan. The prisoners cleverly utilized the straw to conceal their digging activities. By creating deep openings in the straw, they packed loose soil from their tunnel excavation into these spaces, effectively hiding any evidence of their work. This strategy allowed them to dig without immediate detection, as many wandering sentries would be unlikely to investigate such an unpleasant area. But how could they dig a tunnel without any tools? The construction of the tunnel was fraught with challenges but driven by an unwavering determination to escape. Using makeshift tools, spoons, knives, and broken pieces of wood, The prisoners worked tirelessly during the night hours when guards were less vigilant. They began by removing a stove from the first floor to gain access to rat hell, then set about chipping away at the mortar between bricks to create a passageway leading outside. As the plan to tunnel out of Libby Prison took shape, Colonel Thomas E. Rose recognized the necessity of forming a dedicated team to execute this ambitious escape. He carefully selected a group of trusted fellow officers who shared his determination and courage. This group consisted of men who had demonstrated their resourcefulness and commitment to the cause, ensuring that each member was reliable and capable of contributing to the tunneling effort. The team organized into shifts, allowing them to work during the cover of night. Each shift consisted of 5 men, rotating in and out to maintain the secrecy of their operation. This systematic approach not only optimized their efficiency, but also fostered a sense of camaraderie among the prisoners. They shared stories and encouraged one another, creating a bond that strengthened their resolve. The tunnel measured approximately 50 to 80 feet in length, and at times was as narrow as 16 inches wide. As they dug deeper into the earth, they faced numerous obstacles. Flooding from nearby sewers that would occasionally fill their workspace with water, lack of oxygen in their cramped quarters, and the constant threat of discovery by guards who could enter rat hell at any moment. The air was often thick with dust and suffocating odors, making every breath a challenge. At one point during their digging efforts, Rose experienced a moment of panic when he became stuck in a particularly tight section of the tunnel. The darkness enveloped him completely, and he could hear the faint squeaks of rats nearby. There was nowhere to go for him. He feared he would suffocate to death or be trapped forever in that dark abyss. However, with sheer willpower and determination, he managed to wriggle free and continue his work alongside his fellow inmates. As they continued digging night after night, setbacks were inevitable. There were instances when flooding caused sections of their tunnel to collapse, or when they accidentally dug too steeply, resulting in cave-ins that forced them to start over in certain areas. But it was the combination of strategy and relentless effort that culminated in a significant breakthrough for Rose and Hamilton's group on the 17th day. That's right, after 17 grueling days of laborious digging, the Union officers at Libby Prison achieved a significant milestone in their escape plan. The tunnel they constructed emerged in a vacant lot adjacent to Care's warehouse, just short of the prison walls. It was a strategic location that would play a crucial role in their bid for freedom. Even though the tunnel had not come out of the prison completely, Rose decided it was good enough if they were discreet enough. Hence, this exit point was carefully chosen for its proximity to the prison and its potential to provide a discreet escape route. The tunnel measured approximately 50 to 60 feet in length and was designed to lead directly from the depths of Libby Prison to the outside world. Emerging beneath a tobacco shed within the warehouse grounds allowed the escapees to avoid immediate detection as they made their way out into the streets of Richmond. The choice of this exit was vital. It enabled them to blend in with their surroundings and walk out through the gate without raising suspicion among the guards. The Libby guards were under the impression that the prison was escape-proof, leading to a false sense of security. As a result, there was less vigilance compared to other prison camps, allowing the escapees a greater chance of slipping away unnoticed. This critical factor contributed significantly to the success of their escape, as it provided them with both physical distance from the prison and an opportunity to navigate through Richmond without immediate pursuit. It was Rose who had dug the final few feet of the tunnel and made it out. With freedom in sight, he could have run for the hills. But Rose had the moral compass to not leave the rest of his comrades behind, for it was as much a suffering for them as it was for him. So he decided to come back. But time was of the essence, so the inmates could not wait for many days. They had to make their move as soon as possible. So Rose, Hamilton, and the rest decided they would stay at the prison for one night, devise a plan on how to escape strategically without getting caught, and then make their move after lights out. Then came the night of February 9, 1864. Anticipation hung heavily in the air as the Union officers at Libby Prison prepared to execute their escape plan. As night fell, the temperature dropped to a chilling 30 degrees Fahrenheit, adding to the urgency of their situation. The team deliberated on how best to carry out their escape under the cover of darkness. They had agreed to send men into the tunnel in groups of 15, a decision made to ensure a steady flow of escapes while minimizing the risk of detection. The escape began shortly after 10 p.m., just after lights out. For over 5.5 hours, a steady stream of beleaguered men crawled through the tunnel, emerging from their cramped passageway into the vacant lot beside Care's warehouse. The method of exiting was straightforward but required careful execution. After crawling through the narrow passageway, escapees emerged beneath a tobacco shed located within the grounds of Care's warehouse. Once outside, they had to navigate through Richmond without raising suspicion among Confederate guards or civilians. Stealth was paramount during this phase. The officers moved quietly and cautiously, aware that any noise could jeopardize their chances of success. The initial groups quickly gathered inside the walled yard of Care's warehouse before proceeding toward the front gate. Their strategy relied heavily on blending in with any other pedestrians who might be out at that hour. They needed to appear as ordinary civilians rather than escaped prisoners. Colonel Thomas E. Rose played an essential leadership role throughout this operation. He was among the first to exit the tunnel and immediately began directing his fellow officers on how to proceed safely. His experience and confidence instilled a sense of purpose within the group as they prepared to make their way out through the front gate. As they walked out into the streets of Richmond, many escapees encountered close calls with Confederate soldiers. Some reported near misses where they barely avoided detection by guards patrolling nearby areas. By approximately 3:30 a.m., once all had exited, they agreed to re-brick the entrance to conceal their escape route from any potential discovery. By this time, no guard or other Richmond authorities had realized of the escape. A total of 109 men successfully used the tunnel that night. Among them were 21 majors and colonels, 35 captains, and 53 lieutenants. This diverse group represented a significant portion of the Union officer corps held captive at Libby Prison. As they emerged from their underground passage, they quickly scattered into small groups, each having discussed their immediate plans for evasion. Some aimed for the countryside, while others chose to remain in Richmond, relying on local sympathizers for assistance. As news of the escape from Libby Prison began to unfold, initial confusion swept through the ranks of the Confederate guards. The first indication that something was amiss came during the morning roll call on February 10, 1864, when the guards discovered that over 100 Union officers were missing. This alarming discrepancy prompted immediate concern and frantic counting as they sought to confirm the extent of the escape. Specific instances highlighted the guards' bewilderment during the early moments of the escape. One guard, noticing unusual activity, called out his fellow sentry, humorously misinterpreting a noise as a coffee pot upset, unaware that it was actually the sound of escaping prisoners. This moment encapsulated the general lack of vigilance among the guards, who had grown complacent due to their belief that Libby Prison was inescapable. As the realization of the escape set in, guards scrambled to respond to the unfolding situation. They quickly mobilized, searching for any signs of the escapees and attempting to piece together how such a significant breach could have occurred without their knowledge. Some sentries were placed under arrest on suspicion of having been bribed or complicit in the escape, leading to further chaos in their ranks. The guards' initial attempts to regain control were hampered by their lack of preparedness for such an event. They had not anticipated that prisoners would dare to escape from what they considered a secure facility. As confusion reigned, messengers were dispatched throughout Richmond to alert other military units and initiate a manhunt for the fugitives. Despite their efforts, nearly 12 hours passed before a coordinated response was fully established. The delay allowed many of the escapees a significant head start toward Union lines. The guards' reaction was characterized by a mix of disbelief and urgency as they scrambled to address the fallout from this unprecedented event at Libby Prison. Only thing the guards had in their favor was the weakness among the escapees. After having stayed at Libby where they endured the worst conditions, almost all the prisoners were starved. They had no real muscle left that could facilitate any athletic attempt such as running. Moreover, many of the escapees were disease-ridden and had no proper clothes for the perilous winter weather. Hence, when search parties were set to track the nearby areas, these were the signs they could use to relocate those who had escaped. The Richmond authorities were particularly concerned about the potential for the escapees to reach Union lines, which heightened their urgency in tracking them down. Messengers and dispatchers flew in all directions, and all available Confederate troops, horse, foot, and dragoons, were dispatched in pursuit of the fugitives. Of the 109 men who escaped that night, 59 successfully reached safety and made their way to Union lines. Their success can be attributed to several factors. Many of the escapees had previously served in McClellan's Peninsula Campaign, which provided them with valuable knowledge of the terrain surrounding Richmond. His familiarity allowed them to navigate effectively through the countryside and avoid Confederate patrols. Additionally, some escapees received assistance from local sympathizers, including Elizabeth Van Law, a well-known Richmond socialite who supported the Union cause. Her network of contacts provided critical support for those attempting to evade capture. Unfortunately, 48 of the escapees were recaptured within days of their fight. With no food in their belly and no clothes to keep them warm, they could only do so much. Having been inside such a traumatic prison, their physical as well as mental abilities had deteriorated to the point where poor planning and misjudgment were always on the cards. Some of them also encountered Confederate soldiers while trying to blend into civilian life, leading to their identification and subsequent arrest. The initial confusion among guards and local authorities allowed some escapees a significant head start, but as search efforts intensified, those who were not cautious enough found themselves back in captivity. Tragically, 2 men drowned while attempting to cross the nearby James River during their escape. As they navigated through the dark waters, they misjudged the river's current and depth. The freezing temperatures compounded their perilous situation, leading to their untimely deaths as they struggled against the icy waters. But what happened to Colonel Rose? Did he manage to escape, or was he one of the 48 recaptured? Following the audacious escape from Libby Prison, Colonel Thomas E. Rose found himself in a precarious situation. Although he initially made significant progress toward Union lines, his journey was cut short just minutes away from safety. As he navigated the terrain, he encountered Confederate pickets who were on high alert following the mass escape. In a moment of misfortune, Rose was ambushed and captured before he could reach the safety of Union forces. After his recapture, Rose was taken back to Libby Prison, where he faced the consequences of his escape attempt. The Confederate authorities recognized his potential as a leader and viewed him as a threat to their operations. Consequently, they placed him in solitary confinement to prevent any further escape attempts or plans from being organized under his guidance. However, the Confederates eventually decided to trade Rose for a Confederate colonel on April 30, 1864. This exchange was facilitated by the ongoing dynamics of wartime negotiations and the need for both sides to recover their officers. Following this trade, Rose returned to his unit, the 77th Pennsylvania Infantry, where he continued to serve bravely until the end of the Civil War. The escape from Libby Prison in February in 1864 became a powerful symbol of resistance against captivity during the American Civil War. It illustrated the unwavering spirit of Union soldiers who, despite facing dire conditions, refused to accept defeat. This audacious breakout not only showcased their determination to reclaim their freedom, but also inspired others to believe that escape was possible, igniting hope among those still imprisoned. Colonel Thomas E. Rose and his men left a lasting legacy through their daring actions. After the war, Rose returned to military service and earned recognition for his leadership and bravery. His experience at Libby Prison remained a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, embodying the struggle for liberty that defined the era. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos.